What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Red Chill, your one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, pop culture, and everything in between. I'm your boy, Root,
And it's a boy, Shubs.
and we're here to discuss John Wick 4. We're going to go over our favorite moments and discuss what we liked and disliked about the movie. Let's get right into it, chaps. Tell me, what did you
Mm,
think of John Wick 4?
I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. It was everything I wanted it to be. And I could have asked for maybe one thing, but we'll get into that. But on everything included, I was just super duper happy with it.
I guess
That's my
my
short review.
I guess the biggest question is this is the very first John Wick that you've seen. As someone
Yes.
coming in completely fresh into this franchise,
Mm.
um, what's your opinion on coming from that angle? Did it
So,
matter?
yes. No, so I actually wanted to mention that it's the fourth part of a movie. It's nearly 3 hours long, and it's the end of a full franchise. And it honestly, like, I could watch if someone just told me this is a John Wick movie, I wouldn't have even noticed that it's a sequel or anything because it was so perfectly self-contained. Like anything that you may need to know, it was delivered like through dialogue or just through understanding the relationships of people from past movies. Obviously, I'm guessing like having watched those movies, some of the relationships would have mattered more. I would have been a little more emotionally invested. But just as like a pure, and it's an action movie, so you don't really need that much stuff for that, you know. So for me, I think that was one of the best things that for a fourth part, it's not even like a sequel. It's the fourth part and it's the last chapter. I think it was so perfectly crafted where it's yeah, I didn't once think like, oh man, maybe I needed to watch something, or at least even if I kind of know the story of the first three and like the important plot points that happen, but even when I watched this, I didn't need to know any of that just to enjoy this movie and for this to stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. I was getting
Yeah.
that feeling. They even made it easy by literally just having like one character come back that you needed to know, and it was like you didn't really need to know much more than that. That like
Yeah.
they're kind of they're friendly, but also a little bit like, oh, kind of like they still fuck with each other. You can't fully trust each other,
Yeah.
but it's what like John Wick doesn't have a lot of friends, and they literally kill off another one. And full spoilers going forward, by the way, just a heads up to
Mm,
everybody. But yeah, I totally fucking loved it too.
yeah.
I think a lot of people are saying that this is the best John Wick. I still think number one is probably altogether a better movie just because
Mm,
the story matters a little bit more and the story is more interesting. Where this movie, the story really doesn't matter. Like there is
right.
a little bit sprinkled, but if you really just took out all the action and you put the story together, it's like a 5-10 minute story. But there's very nice underlying themes and there's things in terms
Mm,
of what they're doing with John Wick thematically, even how they're
right.
tying up everything in the end. Where, yeah, I think those things are all great, but I still think the first one, just that straight single story that drives the entire
Right.
movie, and then our introduction to John Wick is really interesting,
Mm,
where you have the reaction of all the gangsters first hearing that it's
right.
John Wick. All of that wasn't really
Mm,
there, but the action is
right.
amazing in this movie. It's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. It's like an action. It's like three big action sequences in this, and a
Yeah.
little bit of talking in between. But like an action scene will start, and it'll just keep going and keep going, and just when you
Yeah.
think it's over, it just keeps going. And I was saying after the movie that like I really loved, especially that in other movies, there's a lot of like little gimmicks that they do. A good example is at the beginning, the nunchucks. But this movie, it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
keeps committing. When they have a cool idea, they just keep going with it. They make sure that
Yeah.
you get a good 3 to 5 minutes and you just get to like sit in this. And I think overall, This movie probably has the best set pieces out of any
Really?
John Wick movie. I think the Arc de Triomphe scene is insane. The way that it escalates, the cars getting faster, and like
Mm,
people just getting hit by cars, and they're using the cars as weapons. And there's the dog running over, and it just keeps going and going. Like it's the sort of thing where, like in another movie, it'll be over in like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But it
right.
felt like we're in this fucking roundabout for like 10 minutes. It just keeps
Mm,
escalating and going crazy and crazy, and you're just like, holy shit, because you can tell it's real cars coming by, and it's just
yeah.
crazy. Like there's some certain scenes in that's insane, and then they follow it up with the insane incendiary round scene where the
Mm,
camera goes up and you get a full on like
that
almost
was amazing.
view. That's one of the greatest action set
That
pieces
was
for so long.
um did you see did you get what reference? Because I remembered a scene from another movie that had that similar camera work, and I've always remembered that scene. Do you know what that's from?
You're not talking about Bad Boys.
No, 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 no. I'm talking about Inglorious Bastards.
We've seen it in Glorious
There's
Bastards.
there's the scene when Shoshana is getting ready, like towards
Oh,
the third act, I think. She's
okay,
putting
yeah.
her makeup on and she gets up, and when she's walking down, the camera suddenly pans up and you see like it's like you see the set, like the ceilings, and it just follows her down the stairs. So the moment
What
I
it
saw this, I was like, wow. But they just keep fucking going with it.
what
That's like,
what it reminded me of was straight up a video game. There's Hotline Miami and a couple of other games which are like top
yeah.
down like that. And with the incendiary rounds, they found a way to make bullets visible from like a top down angle where like
Mm,
you wouldn't it's like in the video game you see the shit coming out of the
yeah.
gun, and like that's how you know where you're shooting, and the way that he's moving and the way that they use the space. And I love that in between we bring the camera back down and we're in the normal
Yeah.
angle, and then suddenly we just go back up and we just
Right.
keep going from the top, and it's like it looks insane. The fire
That scene
rounds,
went on for so long. It
it
was
was like,
like I
yeah,
was amazing.
it made it almost puts you in a trance with the
Yeah.
music and the
Mm,
choreography, and like just the entire thing almost uncut. You're just like
yeah.
you're in it. Like once it starts, you're just kind of like in the zone, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, it looks insane. Like it's so beautiful. Again, I can't think of another action scene like that in
Mm,
any movie in the last like 5, maybe even 10 years. Like yeah, it was that amazing in terms of like memorable, like
yeah.
I don't think any other John Wick had something where directing wise it stuck out so much,
Right.
you know.
And that's actually, you mentioned like being it felt like being stuck in a trance. That's exactly the thing I said when the movie ended and we all came out, right? And
Yeah.
I was just like looking around, and like I was just looking at you guys, and I was like, dude, it feels like I've like come out of like a trance. Like
Yeah.
it was something where and
I
that's
was
one of the things where, yeah, yeah, go on, go on.
no, I was saying my response was like, yeah, this shit is relentless.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah, yeah,
stop.
yeah,
Like
yeah, you said that. Yeah, it was. And but that's one of the things I wanted to mention was like, so I'm not like a huge fan of action movies, because most action movies, especially like in the last 5-10 years, where it's just been like, I don't know, it just feels like dumb and it's not something memorable. Like it's not like 80s and 90s action movies, right? So I never became like a big fan of it. And I would always just like, after some time you just get this glaze over, because now movies are like too choreographed or they're just dumb, like super dumb, right? And I was like really worried going into this, like thinking like, oh my god, it's almost like a 3-hour movie. Like how am I going to be able to, and John Wick being like a dude with guns, right? Because I've
yeah.
seen it like in posters and trailers and stuff. So I'm like, how am I going to respond? I was like worried that I'm totally gonna pass out at some point for sure, because I would pass out in like action movies or war movies where at some point, unless it's like super immersive, I would just at some point or another I would pass out. This was like I was fully engaged the entire time, and I had a smile on my face where every like 5, 10, 8 minutes I just kept looking over to everyone next to us, and I was just like, damn, like they just kept upping the antes with like, yeah, it had so many different cool choreography, props, the way they use all that stuff, and obviously the music was like
Yeah.
super pumping, but not like it didn't feel generic. It always felt like you're going with it. And it had the thing I loved the most was that all the quiet moments it had, they were the right amount. Like they were the right length of time,
Yeah.
where it was literally just a setup and enough of a tension building to, an action scene's gonna come, but you're just like, okay, they're talking, they're setting up stuff. And I was like, okay, for someone who hasn't seen any of the first three, this is good for me, right? I'm understanding what's happening. And you have to be a tiny bit invested, and like some tension has to be built. And then you're like, okay, now the action scene starts, and now you're in it. Then you go into like a trip for like 10 minutes, and then you come back out after some time. You breathe for like a few minutes here. It sets up the next thing. It never felt like you're going on a too much of a roller coaster. It was always like perfect setup, tension building, action scene. Perfect setup, tension building, breathing, action scene.
Well,
And
I
I
do have
think
to
they
say,
like managed to do that perfectly.
I do think you could have cut out some of the stuff. It didn't need to be 3 hours. Where I think you could have reduced a little bit of the talking and even
Right.
some of the action, because you're talking about the glazing
Right.
over. I have this thing also where like when movies are really bad or like I just lose interest, I'm
Mm.
starting to like check out, and I have the worry of falling asleep. No issue of that
Yeah.
here. I was in it all the way.
Yeah.
But I definitely had some moments because they stick in the action scene for so long, and like they stick in
Right.
the set piece that like eventually it turns a little bit into white noise, and like I start like my
Mm.
mind starts drifting away. But I come back quickly at least. But it's definitely, I had that feeling in between where it just went on and on, and not everything had a
Mm.
crazy set piece like the
Right.
car thing. I think the last hour of this movie really takes things to the next level. But I
Yeah.
think the mini boss in the middle where he has to go and kill the guy for the Russians, that was a cool set
Mm.
piece. It sticks
That was
out.
amazing.
But I
That was
think
amazing.
the at the beginning when they're in the Japan
Mm-mm.
hotel, I forgot the name of the hotel, Continental. I think
Yeah.
in that one specifically, there were some moments where like it kept going, and like it was cool. Like you got to see, for example, the difference between Donnie Yen, who was
Mm.
absolutely amazing, stole the entire show in this movie.
Mm.
Incredible seeing him act,
Yeah.
and like his movements, like the way that he fights, what he did with the, I wish they had done more with the blind thing. Right? They started with the
Right.
doorbells, and then they never did anything again. And sometimes he really knows where everybody is, and then he grabs a glass
Yeah.
like this. Like
Yeah.
it was a little bit inconsistent, but I loved what he was doing with the character. And
Mm.
we got to see, like, we saw him first, and we saw other people fight until we first see John Wick go off in that hotel. You see like the big difference of how they move, and John Wick is like pushing and fucking aggressive, like on the counter attack so hard because they like attacked that dude. But I felt like there were some moments where like, oh shit, like we're still in this hotel and we're still rolling and fighting and doing a UFC move to this guy and giving him an arm
Yeah.
bar, and then we shoot this guy, we throw the gun. And it's like, yeah, in between us, like, oh shit, I needed to catch myself because it was a little like, oh fuck, I'm drifting off a bit. But overall,
For
yeah.
me, yeah. For me, it
Uh,
was like, okay, so I'm just sorry. Yours.
no, I was just saying that, like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it had me though. It really had me, this
Mm.
movie.
I think for me, some of the things was like, so I'm just gonna mention a few things that happened to me in the last month, and maybe why I was more enthused with this movie. So I discovered termites in my room, which is why I'm in like this makeshift studio now. Okay, and then I find out that my ex got married. Okay, we just broke up recently, 8 years ago, and I was like, what the hell? Wait, no, can you edit that out?
No, that's staying in. Okay, what the hell? And then
Okay, and then so I was really looking forward, and then I was really looking forward to Shazam because I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take my mind off things, and I love the first Shazam, and just like my past relationship, it was very disappointing. So watching this, it was like so satisfying and such like a breath of fresh air, where I think maybe that's why I was just for 3 hours, I was just very, very, very happy to just get my mind off of things and just watch people like kill and shoot other people in very creative, fun ways. I think that might be the reason.
Okay, I don't know what you're implying there, but
No, I'm just thinking like I'm trying to figure out why my eyes didn't glaze over in even in like a 3 hour action movie that especially I haven't watched any of the first three where I wasn't emotionally invested, and I think
but
that may be the reason.
but I also think these movies, that's what they do. Like all the John
Mm,
Wicks have been like this, where it's like I can tell you how it went with the first three. Where like I watched the first one, I absolutely loved it. Then I
mm,
watched the second one when it came out, and there were a couple of scenes where like he's fighting Common, and like they were just really
mm,
super ridiculous to a level where like I was like, nah, this is
mm.
like now is becoming almost a bit stupid.
Right.
Uh, then the third one came out and everyone's like, "Yo, it's amazing! You need to watch it." And then I didn't watch it in cinemas, and then it came out on home video, and then I finally watched it, and I felt like such a fucking fool because I put it on reluctantly, and after like the first 2 minutes, I was like, "Yo, I'm back in." So
Really.
it's like, and even in the second one, I wasn't bored. It was really just like there's a couple of
Mm,
things where I'm just like, it's a bit stupid. Well, like
right.
the other, they all have stupid shit in it, but in that one, it kind of, I wasn't with the program. It was too stupid for me.
But so that's the thing. Like that's what I was worried about. That it especially for a fourth movie, right? I was like, how are they going to keep the action fresh? And how are they going to be able to like, because it's so easy for something like that to get repetitive, and
Yeah.
for because by now we've seen all the cool shit. There's only so much martial arts you can do. There's only so many stunts you can do. I think Keanu Reeves himself and maybe Tom Cruise, they've like spoiled us with all these things over time where it's like, okay, for 3 hours, and that kind of led me into my main a question that I
Well,
had
before that,
yeah, sorry,
I
go on,
have
go on.
if you're saying that, I have a big question for you. If you're
Mm,
saying seen there, done that, been there, uh,
right.
what was it like for you to see the style of the John Wick movie in terms of the action? Because the biggest thing about this is it always stuck out where like it is doesn't feel like something you've seen before because of how they do the
Right.
stunts and how the action is done, where they have respect for gun usage in terms of the
Mm,
bullet count, the reloads, the way that you have to use a gun. Same way
right.
they came up with what they used to call gun fu, where by the way,
Oh,
there's
I didn't know
equilibrium
that.
with gun kata. So I always had a problem with them being like, yo, we came up with gun fu, which is guns mixed with kung fu. But I'm like, yo, but Christian Bale had gun kata. That was
Yeah.
basically the same thing. He just never put the
Mm.
gun away. But yeah, also gun kata, way cooler name.
Mm.
But yeah.
Gankara. I like that.
So what do you think of the style?
So yeah, okay. So that's part of the question I was actually going to ask. And so I'll just put all of it together. Where while watching this, I was asking myself, why am I enjoying this so much, right? And it led me to ask like, what really makes a good action movie, especially in today's day and age, where I started analyzing things like, so they have, especially if it's not like a straight up Asian movie, because Asian movies have like cool choreography and it feels like a little more realistic the way it's done. And I was like, all the different, like, you have to keep upping the creativity of your set pieces, the cinematography, the colors that are used, the music, and then you need to make sure that I think for me it was like, at some point the action itself wasn't uh like the best thing about a scene, but I think it was everything put together that kept me going and going and going, because I get bored of sometimes just one guy fighting just nameless henchmen for a long time. And I think in this, it would fight nameless henchmen, and then it would cut to someone else, and then it would fight nameless henchmen, and then there would always be like those small little mini bosses here and there, like the scene of Scorpion's daughter, where she's just like she's on top of the big dude's back, and he's like going up the stairs, and she's just stabbing him, you know. And
Well, what I think
yeah, go on.
is specifically like with a good action scene, it is very important that it's not just about the action. There has to be a story told through action. You know,
Right,
like a good action scene has cuts where you see an action, a reaction, an emotion during the fight. And I think what John Wick does amazingly is
right.
everything is a little bit of a storytelling. Him running out of a
Mm,
bullet like in his gun, and then he has to take his gun apart and then use half of it here and half of it there, pick up another gun. He's problem
right.
solving while he's moving through. And
Mm,
what I was thinking about, like why my eyes weren't glazing over, because I think nowadays there's a lot of action scenes that are just a lot of CGI, and you really
mm,
don't care, and it's a lot of quick cuts. They made
right.
sure there's a lot of long wide
Yeah,
shots where we're not cutting, and we see
yeah.
Keanu Reeves move from one side of the frame all the way to
Mm,
the other side of the frame, taking out three people on in the progress, and he's rolling and flipping,
right.
taking him out while taking him into a headlock and rolling around that guy, and like you really like it gives you time to actually see the action. You see that it's real, it's
Yeah,
believable. You actually see Keanu Reeves doing it on top of them also having him literally, like I said, problem solve himself
right.
through every action. He's like the greatest gunman ever. So he's gonna kill everybody, but how is he gonna do it? What
Mm,
like what is the obstacle that he's gonna overcome in this fight? And yeah, that's like the mini boss in Germany. The big guy is a great example where like suddenly, okay, there's a guy where he can't take him out with his kung fu. Like no matter how
yeah.
much he punches, the guy kind of keeps coming up. I was telling you, he was also very video gamey. Where I was
Yeah.
thinking like he's like this little mini boss that shows up in the middle, and
Mm.
throughout the fight, you can almost see his health bar chunking down. And then he has a second phase where like he's gone down, and then you think it's over, but he comes back, and like now it's like a whole new fight,
Yeah.
and that's like yeah, it's cool. It's like they made a video game movie without it being based on a video
Yeah.
game.
So, but also, it's like, well, first of all, I would love to have a video game like this where you're just going around, like, you know, you use different weapons and all these kind of things. And
There are
I'm sure
many.
there's like games like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I know.
was playing
but
Seafood
but
today.
just
That's
like,
basically John
right.
Wick.
But also, like, when you mention story, right? What, like, in an action movie like this, you don't really want, like, I mean, obviously if you have like a really enthralling story, it's one thing, but in an action movie like this, you still want things to be, well, there's like those checklists that you have to hit of, like, okay, so it has to be like a simplistic relatable story, right? A little bit. It needs to have like underlying themes of things like revenge and making up for past mistakes, guilt, and you have like a mustache twirling villain. But then somehow you have to make sure that, I think the difference between this and like other movies that have tried to do that is that you have to take yourself seriously enough where you're not like overtly comical, but then at the same time you can't get like too serious about it. And I think they had like a few well-timed comedic moments. Even there are a few, but every, like, all the dialogue that they had, it was like, if someone else was delivering those lines, or like if it was in a different kind of a movie, I would be laughing most likely, right? Because it would sound so stupid, like all these adults like saying like super generic lines. But in this, somehow it felt like it was like, okay, yeah, it's an action movie, and you sort of go along with that, uh with that vibe of like, you know what, I'm just going to take these guys as seriously as they are taking, but I'm not but they're not getting like too up their own ass about these things. And I think that's how they had like a perfect blend of having all these things. There was just enough heart and humanity about like John Wick, and like those small little moments between him, Morpheus, and I'm forgetting the third guy, Robert Redford, I think. No, whoever that guy was, Mr. Manager.
He's a guy from American Gods. Please,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna spoil
Well,
who he
yeah, I know.
plays.
No. He is Edward James Olmos, I think. No, that was a different
No,
guy.
no.
Yeah. No. Sorry. But you know who I
I
mean.
love that guy.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time I
Yeah.
see him, I'm fucking happy. But
Yeah.
also,
I
it's
know.
so funny. John Wick, he said almost no lines in his movie. It's like
Yeah.
hilarious. I think my
So
favorite one was Donnie Yen coming. He's like, "I need you to get up those stairs, John," and he's like, "Yeah."
yeah. So can I just talk about Keanu for a second? I don't know why it really seemed like or felt like he was like doing like a parody of himself every time he delivered. Every single time. It wasn't like a few lines here and there that it felt like that. Every single line he delivered. I don't know if you remember the Chappelle skit of the Matrix skit where Chappelle is acting like the agent, right? He calls the dude on the phone, and
Yeah.
the guy gets the phone, and he's like over exaggerating his Keanu impression, where he's just like he goes, "Hello, Morpheus," and Keanu delivered every single line like that
Yeah,
in this movie, and it just felt,
that
but it
is the
was like,
character. That's John
I know
Wick.
that's why.
The
Oh, okay.
biggest line like that made like everybody remember anything that John Wick ever said. Where like in the first one, he goes, "People keep asking me if I'm back. You know what? I think I'm back."
Oh my
Like,
god! I want to watch that. I just want to see that one scene again.
yeah, it's so
Uh,
good. I love it. I
but
love all his deliveries. They're all so dry and so like,
yeah,
yeah,
and
okay,
he waits that 1 second before
yeah,
his entire head moves,
yeah.
and the thing I think why it
It's
worked was
processing.
like I said, yeah, it's like I don't think because if it was like only if like a couple of scenes here and there, I would have been like, oh my god, that's so bad. But it was every single line delivered like this, where I'm like, okay, that's just John Wick. That's
Yeah.
how he talks, but this is how he actions, and his actions is amazing.
It's actually
And
a
that's sort
great
of like it's like a
juxtaposition.
yeah. I was just gonna mention, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say
Because
juxtaposition. That's the
but
exact
like
word I was
it's
gonna use.
basically like he's always processing, but it shows how like in a conversation he knows he can
Yeah,
take his time. But in an action moment, he's just like
he's
bam,
just
bam, 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 bam. You know, he's ready for every fucking move.
yeah.
Fuck. So good.
That it was
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, let's talk about some other things that we liked in it.
So
What
okay, yeah.
was
So I was a little disappointed that there wasn't like a proper boss fight against the French guy, but at the same time I was kind of happy the way they did it. I think it superseded like I kind of wanted to see the French guy fight, but then it kind of makes sense where he's just like, oh, like he just uses everybody for his own gain. And then the best part about it was that his downfall, like as a villain, it's great where his the villain's downfall wasn't like, oh, Keanu punching him harder than he punched Keanu. It was that it was just straight up arrogance. And it was even better because he was French, and French people are known to be some of the most arrogant people in the world. I think allegedly, and I think that was like the best. Like for me, it was like amazing that
I do have to mention
that
that
yeah,
accent though. It was all over the place. It was like
it was
Australian at
yeah,
some point. It was
yeah, it was.
German, French. I don't know what Scott
I was
Atkins was doing in between.
before they mentioned that he's French or like he says something in French. I thought he was German, and I looked over to you. I was like, oh shit, they're using a German villain.
I swear between he just sounded like Scott Atkins with his Australian accent.
Yeah,
It's like, well, otherwise he was great. I thought
yeah.
he was great in this movie.
He was very good. I loved every scene with him.
There's actually a question I could ask you.
Mm.
Not set in stone, just off the top of your head. What would you say are your three, well, not your three favorite action movies? What do you think are the three best action movies that you've seen?
So I'm glad you asked me that question because I had a very more specific. I had the exact same question, but just a little more specific. So I'm gonna flip it onto you and ask you this. I have two questions. Okay. One is, what would you say is the better action movie, this or The Raid?
Mm, well, I haven't seen The Raid in a while.
I've seen
Uh,
it a bunch.
I think I would have to give it to John Wick 4 because The Raid was amazing when it came out, but like now everybody's
Hmm.
done The Raid.
Hmm.
And like I almost think like I like Dread, which is basically the raid with Judge Dredd.
Right. Hmm.
And yeah, there's just like it's been done now so many times where I think it takes away from the original, where like when you I
Hmm.
feel like now thinking back of like the scenes that stuck out to me when I first watched it, I can immediately think of other movies that did something similar, or shows
They had a
even.
lot of raid references in John Wick 4.
I mean, at this point, like I said, it's what everybody
Yeah.
does, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think right now I would have to go to John Wick, but I have to see the raid again. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it since it came out. I think I watched it like
It's
once after, but yeah, been a
I
while.
think so I can't decide between the two. I think the thing I liked about the raid was that it was like so like in just this one location. So there's this feeling of like that threat of like, just like I'm stuck in this place now, and my only way out is, through, that saying. It's a
Mm.
sports thing. And but and also like it was so much grittier, like from the way the action was shown, and then also like just the cinematography of the raid was like so like grimy, and like, it's in like this dirty fucking building, and you really felt like every bad person I saw in the raid like felt gross and like scarier, just because it was like I could see real people be like this. Like, if I went into like
Yeah.
a shady criminal building in fucking Thailand, like I could see people like this walk on the street, and I would be scared. Be like,
You
you know
see,
what, I should
I,
avoid that road. But in
I
this it
totally
was
get
like,
that.
yeah.
I just would say that like for example, for me, when I think specifically from movies from that part of the world, I think immediately of like On Buck was like I like
Yeah.
I like over the top stuff. Like I grew up loving Jackie Chan, so
Right.
you know, I loved when the raid came out, how gritty it was and how grounded.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I'm
Grounded.
still the things that stuck out to me in John Wick were the fantastical things where
Right.
the guy like three guys get hit by a car and they're flipping in the
Mm.
air and John Wick pops them out of the air. And like scenes like that, you know, that sticks out to me.
and
Um,
and 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 fighting like goofy over the top villains that still seem threatening enough, like Scott Atkins in a fat suit with
yeah.
a crazy
Okay,
terrible
so
accent.
I assume that you say the raid is one of the top three. What would
Yes.
be
So
the
my
other two?
second question, to you was, which one would you say is a better movie, John Wick or wait, did my thing go off? Oh no, I'm
No,
sorry. So my John Wick or Mad Max?
Mad Max.
Mad Max, right? Yeah, I went Mad Max too. Just because it's such a different kind of an action movie.
Yeah, Mad Max is perfection.
It's, yeah, exactly. It had way more heart and humanity to it, I think. And in terms of just being fantastical, it was a lot more fantastical, but I think the practical effects was like so crazy
The
and
way that
well
movie
done.
is shot is insane.
Yeah,
It's a car chase in one direction and then you turn around and it goes in the other
right.
direction.
Yeah.
But the way that it's shot, and they have this whole thing where like they made sure everything is in the center of the frame. They had all these little rules that they gave the movie.
Mm,
It's
mm,
cinematic perfection. In terms of doing an action
right.
movie, I don't think you can do much better than the
Right.
new Mad Max movie. Okay, so that's number two. What is your third one?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe John Wick 4.
Okay, shit.
Yeah,
See,
right.
I was
I
trying to
haven't
think
seen that
about it.
many in the last 10 years.
I would say like yeah, I think Mad Max has to be there. I think Die Hard, the first one. Although
Okay.
I really like the third one a lot, but I think the first one is just such a classic.
Mm,
But
right.
I still rewatch the third one more often than the first one. But
Mm,
if I had to go just by like technicality of like actually technically being the best, I think Die Hard has to be there. And I think
okay.
a lot of people sleep. Actually, not the. It's not underrated, but not enough people give it enough credit, which is I think True Lies, which is like another action movie, which is just like unrelentless. Like it just keeps
Mm.
going and upping itself, and it's like, yeah, it is like an action movie on fucking steroids. Yeah, and I would say Mad Max, and that's like I said, it's not set in stone. I feel like there's so many
Yeah.
things. I think, for example, Bad Boys 2 is an insane action movie where
Right.
like that was also so long and it ends three times, but every time they do another thing afterwards, at first you're like, no, really? Now you're going to fucking Brazil? Where are you going? But like by the end, you're like, no, but it's so fucking worth it for what they did and shit. And in the same way, there's like a police story just for the stunts. But
Hmm.
I think
I
technically,
think I think the reason I'm not thinking of those movies that you mentioned, Die Hard and Bad Boys. I think they're more like they're like movies. They are, I guess they are action movies, but they're more movie. I think I'm thinking like just purely action, right? Action through and through. That's why I think the Ray, John Wick, and like Mad Max come to my mind. Where it's like, if I were to think of Die Hard, I wouldn't. Obviously, it's like if I were to categorize it, I would say it's an action movie. But it's more just like a movie about this
well,
guy who gets stuck
it,
in this predicament,
it's also a
and you
Christmas
like you know what
movie.
I mean? Right, exactly. So it's I think that may be the reason I'm not including them in this, and why when I think like what's a pure action movie? I think
Honestly,
whereas yeah.
there's the thing about the guy who made Die Hard. He's also the guy who did Predator, and he did
Mm,
something else. But like it's John McTiernan or something like I
yeah.
think it is.
Yeah.
And I think generally he's maybe the greatest action director though. When it comes to
Mm,
like he made absolute classics that are franchises that like if you make a movie with that name today, people will go just because of that first one.
right.
Um, but I see, I get what you mean. That's why like yeah, that's but the thing is American action movies, we don't get that many that are actually pure
Yeah.
action, that are actually good. You know, because
Right.
they often forget that part where the it's not just about action, where even if it's all about
Mm,
action, like it goes back to that where I still think the only good action movies that really take you in are the ones that have good storytelling during the
right.
action. It's not
Right.
story then action story. No,
Mm,
it's the action is to emphasize the story and not the
right.
other way around.
So, but then would you categorize The Matrix as an action movie or like a
Totally.
sci-fi action movie, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that
I
should be
actually
up there then,
I think it was yeah, totally. I was thinking about that one too while I was going through the movies.
right?
But I think
Because
it
that not only was it like an isolated amazing action movie, but like just what it did for cinema in general
exactly
and for action in
influentially
general.
it
Yeah,
has to be like up there. It's the same like
right,
that's why I think Die Hard should be there because
right, yeah,
now like how many Die Hards have you gotten? It's a thing
of
now.
course,
Whether they
yeah,
say
yeah,
it's Die Hard on a plane, it's Die Hard on a
yeah,
boat. You know, like
yeah,
it's a genre of movie almost. And like
mm,
the same way I think Matrix, yeah, you're totally right. It's cinematically like people started copying so many styles from it.
everything, yeah.
And it was one of the first proper uses of kung fu in American cinema and
I
on
think
that
maybe
level.
the first.
Well, I think yeah, I think that type of kung fu shown that way because we
Yeah,
have Steven Seagal and we have what's Walker Texas Ranger and those guys. We had Enter the Dragon, which was made in
right.
America, but in America,
But
like
just like American people, I guess, doing
showing
action.
through an American lens.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. I think that's a
it
good way
was
of
like
putting it.
a new age movie showing traditional kung fu in that way. It is a nice little mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
And like you said, like what obviously the action scenes are very memorable from that movie, but what's actually more memorable is the story itself.
yeah,
And how like everybody wants to be Neo. They're not just wanting to be Neo because he's a badass. I think everybody wants to be that guy who like goes to the and then all this stuff, or like be like Morpheus, or like be like Trinity. Like the characters
you
and the
know,
story were way more important. But when you add the amazing action to it, it makes it like almost like a perfect blend of a perfect action movie where yeah.
you don't think everybody just wants to know kung fu? I know kung fu.
Did you? I was gonna ask you this because I did this. It's like when you finish watching Rocky, you want to become a boxer. When I got home from the movie theater, every single thing I did was like in a kung fu manner, where
Oh yeah,
if I opened the drawer, I was like, and then I put my
see,
wallet in there and I like flung it in there, and, and then every
I
single
went
thing I did.
like in Germany we have a carnival which is like Halloween, and I got like a
Right.
coat mate, like a
Okay.
Matrix coat, and I was just
Right.
playing. Like I was acting like I was in the Matrix at home and shit.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
it.
so that's what good movies do. Like they pump up your adrenaline to like where you're like, man, I want to be like this. I want to be like Rocky. I could be like fucking Arnold and like get to the chopper, you know? You wanna and
Is
do shit like that, like
is The
from the
Dark
Matrix.
Knight an action movie?
Ooh, I don't think so.
No.
I
It
I
has
wouldn't
pretty
I
big
would
action sequences. The
yes,
car
but I would
chase.
say it's more of a action thriller.
Okay.
Which could it be? Yeah, I guess it could be.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
mean, it could be an action movie.
It has some pretty big sequences in it. Pretty big in
So
terms of even
that
like if you just go by like in crazy stunts, them flipping that truck is like legendary at this point.
when Keanu was fighting Scott Adkins, I immediately was thinking about Batman fighting Bane.
Yeah, I
Like
can see
like
it.
uh like a smaller character fighting a really big guy, a bulky guy that you wouldn't expect to be that quick and like like that agile at his moves. And when like Scott Adkins really started fighting, like 1-to-1 fighting, I immediately started thinking, I was like, oh shit, this like, and not like Batman fighting Bane, because those fights weren't like that good in terms of like it wasn't like a 1-to-1 thing. But like when Bane is like going into that stock market thing, and he pulls out his motorcycle helmet, like when he's going through the check, and the way he's moving, and even Alfred's like showing the footage to Bruce Wayne, and he's like, look at the ferocity, look at the thing, and you wouldn't necessarily expect someone that bulky to be that agile. Normally, people who are that good at fighting
Yeah,
are like leaner,
the way Scott was moving in that fat suit, it was
Yeah,
dope. It looked dope.
it was
Like
amazing.
the whole
It was
scene looked
amazing.
dope. Like, I mean, he looks like such a video game character with the lights going
Yeah,
on behind him and shit.
yeah.
And then later
And of
the
course, it
rain.
has to be in a nightclub.
And like I feel like it's the very first time that anyone in a John Wick movie actually reacted to somebody getting shot in front of them. Usually people
Oh
just like keep
yeah,
walking, but there's actually
yeah.
like
I
one or
was
two
like,
people in the club who are like, oh, what but there's
oh my
still a lot
god,
of people who are just like, yeah, and people
yeah,
getting shot left and
rave.
right. They're like, yeah, don't spill my drink, bro.
Don't smell my drink.
But yeah,
That's why I
okay.
hate clubbing.
But yeah, let's get back to the movie.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of them killing John Wick? I was not ready for
Ooh,
that. I get
really?
it now. Where like it makes so much sense. Where like
Yeah.
I actually heard afterwards that the director was saying that these movies are all about action and consequence, and how every action has a
Mm,
consequence. So it wouldn't make sense for John Wick to never have a consequence for what he has done.
mm,
But it's kind of cool that in the end, it was like there was a question of his purpose and like why is he doing this, and by the end
right.
he either gets to self-sacrifice himself to
Yeah.
save Winston and save Donnie Yen and this
Yeah.
his daughter that we don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
yeah, in the end it's like yeah, it's like a selfless death. It's still
Yeah.
crazy. I still think of course they like they
They
made it in
foreshadowed it during the movie
from what.
when they're in that boat and they're talking about what to write on a tombstone, and John Wick's like, "I
Oh
want
yeah,
loving husband." I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, he's gonna die in the end of the movie for sure."
I guess I don't know. I feel like they've talked so much
Yeah.
about death that I
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
For me, it wasn't like in Shazam. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna go
Yeah.
there.
In Shazam, I
But
was.
but in this one, it took me out of nowhere when he like when they flashed his wife's face, and then
Mm,
I didn't understand it until like in my head I was like that seems like a fatal wound. But
right.
I don't know because it was in the stomach, and I don't know until he
You
fell.
never actually see. You never actually see where he got shot the third
I think
time in the
no, it
duel.
was the third spot. It was shoulder, arm, and then in the stomach was the third time.
Right. Okay.
But until he fell over, I did not realize that they're about to kill him off for good. But I still think they left it in a way where he could be there. I think there's
Yeah.
probably an alternate ending somewhere where they're like hinted at it a bit more, but they can totally come back in like 5 years and be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he faked his death." You know, it's not the first time that
Or
has done that.
or like the dude, the American God, maybe he and Morpheus like lifted him up and took him somewhere, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Like
like
there's ways to get around that.
in the last
But
movie,
but
Winston
it would
shot
completely
him.
negate all any emotional aspect from the end of this if they do that. I hope they don't.
No, wait, they'll just do it in a few years, like I think
when
that
nobody cares anymore.
no, I think when we gave it enough time and people really wanted to come back, I think
Hmm.
there's rumors of them trying to do spin-offs
I
with
think he
different
might just
characters.
show up as like a flashback or like
There's
or something like that, but I don't think they should.
there is a movie coming that's about the daughter of somebody that was killed trying to get
Hmm.
revenge. And I think Keanu hinted very much at the fact that he is probably the guy who killed her father. So he's going to be in that movie, and we're going to see it's like a prequel to this, and we're going
Hmm.
to see like a different angle of what
Oh.
it's like. This is speculation, but the way that he hinted
Hmm.
at it, I think they're trying to show what kind of boogeyman John Wick is to people from the when you're on the other
Right.
side of the gun. And
Hmm.
I think they're gonna do little things like that, I'm sure, because this
Right.
movie is about to make all the money. Like people it got such good
Oh
reviews.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure the studio is not done with it. Where
Yeah.
like
I
even if
agree.
Keanu is done, I'm sure they're not done. Where even the
That's
director changed already, where it's not the same director of the first two.
oh really? Chad Stahelski, something like that.
Or was it the director? Oh, I think, but you know what? It might be the stunt director, one of the two, maybe
Hmm.
both. I was saying I saw all the stuntman Scott Atkins and the stunt director discussing it. What was
Right.
really interesting was he mentioned that he had very little time. That like the other guy who was working on the movie left kind of close to shooting, and he
Okay.
had to like come in and like there was very little pre-viz done where all the other movies had everything done in pre-viz, but he was so
Hmm.
busy training Keanu Reeves that, for example, he was saying the whole Arc de Triomphe roundabout sequence, he did it in like 5 days of prep, like
Damn.
and like the staircase fight scene, I think he came up with the day before or something like that. Like
Whoa.
everything was like
That's
really
crazy.
yeah, like in the way that it's
That's
set up it
insane.
seemed like so thought out, but like it seems like a
Hmm.
lot of it was like very quickly just come up with and make it happen, and I don't think you could tell.
That's pretty crazy, dude.
Yeah, like
I
now
couldn't
pretty
tell.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, now when I watch it again, I'm curious. There's probably something where like maybe that's why there's a bit longer shots of him just moving around. I
Hmm.
don't know. Really, I
How the
couldn't
fuck?
tell.
How did he get from Japan to Paris to Berlin? Someone should have stopped him somewhere at the airport.
That's that network with the Continental. The
Oh,
assassins have their own underworld, and
okay.
you have these coins, and with those coins,
All
you
right.
can get into secret
Ah,
places and get around, and they have their
all
own
right.
everything.
Okay.
That's the whole thing from the last movies. It's
Okay.
like a
Because I
whole
thought of that after
universe.
the movie. I was that thought never even occurred to me during the movie, but I actually
Okay,
started thinking. I was like, wait, how the fuck did he travel?
okay. You thought that came up. You didn't wonder why there's like a radio station that's literally just giving updates
Yeah,
about John Wick, about the
I
entire
almost
ending,
just went with it. I
right?
noticed like I was like, wait, they're just saying all this stuff. I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
know.
first they're speaking in code, but then it seems like just they're just talking about it. But then I was like, oh, maybe it's like that special channel that's like
That's what
blocked to everybody else. But
I think they
because I
should
saw
have
that in the back of
they should have said that, like that this is
right,
only the assassins are listening to it, because the way they played it, it seemed like it was
right.
just this French radio station with a American
I
English speaking host who's just like randomly she's been playing tunes all night, and then she's like, "What's up, everybody?
what's up,
John
everybody?
Wick is on the way.
Yo,
Everybody
yo,
should
yo, it's a boy.
the money is going up. Somebody better get him. He's going
And she
downtown." Somebody at home making dinner is just like, "What the fuck's up with this
wait,
lady?
wait.
She just wait, what
At
happened? She was
first,
talking all normal like a half an hour ago. Now she just keeps talking about John Wick. What is
and
a
in the
John Wick?"
beginning, like in the beginning, it all seems like code, like where she's like,
Yeah,
"This one goes for you,
yeah.
John Wick," and then she just goes straight up blatant,
It,
like on the nose, like, "Hey, dude, the money's going up, guys. He better
yeah,
not come out alive." I was like,
I noticed
"Whoa,
that too. It was code, and then by the end, she doesn't even care anymore. She's just straight up saying
yeah."
his name and saying where they're going, and like, what the fuck? It was.
That was
I
hilarious.
just went with it. That's like the same.
Yeah,
Like I was saying in the second one. It's
it's
just
like
stupid shit that you just have to
like that's
accept.
like Mad Max, where whatever fantastical stuff happened, you just sort of go with it. You just like
I
those are the
still,
moments you turn your brain off for, and you don't really look for logic.
I still would have appreciated them just explaining it a little
But so,
bit.
but I kind of did figure it out from seeing some of those gangsters who are so there's a radio in the back, and they clearly show that one of those radio stations, like the old school radios, right? So it
Yeah.
has the needle on like a specific radio station. So
Okay.
in my mind, the moment I saw that, it just added up. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like probably like a secret line within the
But
radio, which is
and
like blocked off to everyone.
but how's it blocked
But then
off? How can just like little Timmy at home just look through
and
his
and
radio and be like, "Oh shit, this lady sounds hot."
no, and also and but what I was thinking was like the kind of place that she's in, like where she's so fancy and it's like in a fancy studio. I was like, that seems like in the center of like a nightclub or something, right?
Okay.
Where I'm just like,
Dude, also
but
them
yeah,
cutting back to them raising the money again and again. After a while, I was like, you don't have to do it a fourth
oh
or
yeah,
fifth
yeah,
time. And then okay,
yeah. They just
so
keep erasing it off
all
the
right,
thing.
can we talk about the tracker, Mr. Nobody?
Oh yeah, how the hell did he?
Okay, there's a moment, I'm pretty sure in his notebook, he's cutting out the amount that is right now the bounty for John Wick. And it
Mhm.
says more numbers on top. Were they
Yeah,
implying that like he's waiting for it to hit that certain amount, then that he can actually go after John Wick? Or it, does he know what the next numbers are? Is he precognizant? Like what is it in between? He was drawing shit also, like he had
yeah.
the symbol of the club. How did he have that book? Like, whoa,
And what was all that, right? Like it just
he was
seemed
so unnecessary.
like
Also,
yeah, it because he doesn't really do anything. Like he
no,
doesn't come across as like someone crazy who has like maybe like some kind of clairvoyance or like he's into like satanic shit. He's just literally some dude who is
that's
like
the
some
thing.
black
You
dude.
know, it really felt like it should have been someone we know, like a big
Right.
actor. You know, it's like an Idris
Mm.
Elba or somebody. So like every
Mm.
time we show up, he shows up. We're just like, oh, it's
Oh
Idris
shit.
Elba is
And
back.
but and his name being nobody actually kind of like it's a very famous actor, but his name is nobody.
Yeah, the way that he was shot and how like he was in the movie, it really felt like he was supposed to be somebody. I looked him up afterwards. He
Right.
didn't. It hasn't
But
been
he's
anything
nobody.
I've seen. Yeah, it's nothing I've seen that he's been in that from what I could tell. So I was like, it was very
Right.
weird. He really didn't need to be in the
All right.
movie, and it was like I
Yeah.
think he was literally the
I think
only
they just
thing that
wanted to have like a new character.
I think it was really just there so that there's a moment where John Wick saves his dog. That's literally the only
Right.
thing that
I
like
think so too. Yeah.
added anything to the
Right.
movie. Everything else is just like,
Right.
oh, he randomly shows up and goes, pow, shoots somebody, and his
Yeah.
dog comes and runs.
He's literally just like a minor obstacle that like when in between of John Wick just fighting random henchmen, like inserted just so that things don't get too boring and repetitive. I think that's his whole point to the whole thing.
You
Yeah.
know, what in the last movie, Halle Berry had two dogs that were like that she used to fight. It was actually what they
Really.
could have done a thing where like it could have been like her brother or a cousin, and then maybe the book is
Mm.
actually like Halle Berry gave him that book because she had her
Mm.
own Continental or
Maybe
something going on. I don't know.
maybe that's in the director's cut.
Maybe
And
I don't know.
they're just like, dude, this movie's 3 hours long. We can't have so many flashbacks to Mr. Nobody's family life.
And okay, and then
I was also
recent.
speaking of Halle Berry. Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was surprised that in an action movie like this, that is so like it's pretty generic, cliched in terms of the way it's like what it is this really amazing. But I was very surprised that there was literally like no sex, no romance, no like gratuitous nudity. Normally, action movies have that. Like they have that
How
one
many
scene or
points did
that
you
one
deduct it
lady.
for that?
I didn't even notice it during the movie.
Sure.
And it was like later on, I was just like, I was doing some personal research. And I was like, hey, wait, I didn't see any of this in the movie.
I know you were very
I was like,
disappointed.
that's kind of. I was very
You
disappointed. I was more
you went
disappointed
straight
in this than my ex girlfriend getting married.
you went straight to that website that you run, Shabs and Sex and Movies, and you were just like John Wick, no
Yeah,
sex.
it's the opposite of Mr. Skin. It's like Yeah, but yeah, I was but I like it didn't bother me. I was just kind of surprised that in a generic action movie which is male, so testosterone driven, that there
No,
wasn't even
what?
one like.
It's all about his wife dying. Like
I know,
it's
but I'm just saying
it like all
like I
falls
was I
apart.
it didn't bother me.
Yeah, like, it would all fall apart if you just would start having sex with every fucking woman on screen.
I thought no, like, or like the villain would have like a sexy muscle lady, who like
It
dresses like
just
kind of
proves that
slutty, or like.
you don't need it.
Exactly. So this movie should be an example for other action movies, that you don't need gratuitous nudity or kind of like objectivity of women in a movie like this for it to appeal to guys. Because I honestly didn't even think about it during the movie. I was just so invested in just watching whatever. But it was like later on, I was like, wait, they even in Mad Max, even though it had a point why those ladies were dressed like that, those like supermodels that Immortan Joe has, but even that, it's like just like sort of like just eye candy in an action movie, which is meant for.
You don't need it. Die Hard didn't
Yeah, I
have it.
was. But I'm not
The
putting
Raid
Die
didn't
Hard
have
in
it.
in that same category. Yeah, that's true actually.
I think this is a shop special.
You're poking holes in it. Oh my. This is a shop special.
Well,
Oh
okay.
man.
What else did we not talk about from the movie? I thought it was crazy that like
Cinematography.
I was yeah, but also I was telling you afterwards. There's like, do you remember there was a whole fight scene on a horse? In like the first 30
Oh yeah,
seconds he
that was
started.
amazing.
Also, we gotta
He was
talk
like
about
he was like a modern cowboy with pistols.
we gotta talk about the beginning. Like the cinema we watched it, we didn't know that the seats would shake, and the movie starts with him hitting the wood,
Oh yeah, that was
and
amazing.
it was like D-box, and these seats were shaking like crazy. I almost flew out of
D-Box.
the
That was
seat.
amazing.
That was crazy. I
Dude,
was so not
on
ready.
like the second setting, it was like fucking Ray
Dude.
looked at me and he's like, dude, I think there's something wrong with my seat. I was like, no, dude, you gotta put the setting low. He's like, no, mine is like over the top. I was like, because you have your setting too high, dude.
Yeah, he kept it on 3, yo. I just kept going back up and down. That
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
was
otherwise,
insane.
what else?
I'll just mention this. I was kind of think it. I thought that Keanu would have like a small little flirtatious scene with the Asian lady, Scorpion's daughter.
You're not gonna
But
let this
then when you
go.
talk about his wife, it
We had moved on.
but I'm glad that they didn't, because it would have completely taken away from the whole point of him and his wife and being a loving husband and all that.
Well, we sat through the entire goddamn credits because they don't know that post credit scenes for a movie like this should
I
be
told
after
you.
the animation. But
I
yeah, you had watched a YouTube video or something. I still don't believe you.
I didn't, dude. So obvious when you're like, oh, it's supposed to be an important post-credit scene. I was like, okay, it's obviously when if they're gonna kill off John Wick, like they're not gonna have John Wick come back. It's like this because they set it up earlier when the girl's like, I'm gonna meet you again for sure. You watch, and I was like, oh, okay, I know
Well,
I know where they're headed with this.
but was he just said I'll be waiting? It's so dope. I really
Was
hope
that?
if it was just Donnie Yen being like I'll be waiting. But I hope
Mm,
that if they do a spin-off with that storyline, I hope it's based like focused on Donnie Yen. Like she was great, and like her action scene was pretty dope. But Donnie
yeah,
Yen was just so fucking good. I feel like we could talk about him
he was
for an hour or
amazing.
two. Also, Scorpion.
Mm,
I always forget that actor's name, but every time I see him, he's awesome.
he's a
Uh,
scorpion for me.
he was also, I think he was in was it Endgame? Isn't like Hawkeye hunting him down? Isn't that the same guy?
Oh yeah, could be. Oh yeah, I think so.
That's what I
I
always think
think
of
so.
when I see
I'm
him.
not too sure.
I'm pretty sure it's him.
Well, maybe you're just racist, dude.
Maybe we wouldn't be the first one on this podcast.
Maybe. That's true. It's a callback to Shazam.
Well,
Go watch our Shazam review.
but yeah, I think that's pretty much most of
Yeah.
the thoughts on the movie. I think we
Can I
covered.
just mention that one? There was one scene that was amazing, which was when in the beginning when Rob Redford enters with Lance Reddick in the Frenchman's office with all the blinders. I think that shot was amazing. I just wanted to mention that. I think that
I
stood
mean,
out to me so much.
we didn't talk about Starsguard and his villain. It was great too. I
Yeah,
liked what they did.
that
His
was great.
his
Was
costume
he there in
design
the
was crazy.
previous movies?
No, it's completely new for this.
Okay,
But
so I'm glad.
I kind of did hope that like this movie should have been John Wick taking down the table, the high table, and like taking out the 12
Mm.
seats because we've never seen the high table, and that's kind of like
But
a
maybe
missed
they want to
opportunity.
save that for the spin-off.
Yeah, maybe. But it would have been so glorious if it was just like kind of
Right.
like a boss fight, like gauntlet.
Mm.
But anyways,
Right.
let's hope they still do it.
It's hilarious that they went with like the old school duel. I think that was very cool.
What do you mean?
And also John Wick falling down this like just having like an old school duel with the
Oh,
pistols
duel. I heard
as
duel.
their last rather
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
like instead of having like a big action scene, they're just like, nope, we're just gonna go old school duel. Doom boom boom. And also
Yeah,
John Wick falling down the stairs. How hard did we laugh at that?
bro. I was telling you, it reminded me of Hot Rod.
They kept going. It kept going.
It's like
Yeah,
Adam
yeah,
Sandberg
exactly.
and Hot Rod just fucking flying down
Yeah.
the mountain forever. Or like the runaway rundown with like the Dwayne Johnson. It just kept because it's so funny.
Yeah.
He goes like
It's just-
half the stairs down and then they kick him down even
And then
further.
he falls again. We
Yeah,
started
just-
laughing so hard for the second one.
Because oh man, and
But
there was
yeah.
a part of me where I was just like, "Fuck, is he gonna have to go all those steps up again?" We were up there.
I don't know. Sunrise is almost there, dude. How are you gonna make it?
Yeah, because it was already like the
But yeah,
third action
I think,
sequence. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
Uh.
overall, John Wick 4 fucking amazing. I'm sad that the series is
Yes.
over, but I can't wait to watch this movie again.
Mm,
But
I agree.
any
Fully recommend.
any final words?
I think whoa. I think that it was amazing, and I don't like go watch it, man, and go watch it in the theater with like proper sound. I think that has to add on a big screen. I think all those things combined is what. Don't watch it on your laptop.
Yeah, the sound.
I mean,
was
even if you want to, but
amazing,
like
visuals,
it's
everything.
yeah,
So definitely worth big screen, big sound.
right.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It was
But-
it was a great cinematic experience after a very very long time.
Yeah. After Shazam, such a nice palate cleanser. But
My God.
okay, we will try and maybe we'll see you guys again for Mario. We want to try and watch that on the
Mario.
weekend. It's a me, Chris
Yeah.
Pratt.
It's a me, Keanu. Keanu.
But,
Mario.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. As always, like and subscribe, comment if you have anything to say, and let us know how we're doing. And yeah, we'll catch you on the flip side. What are you saying, chaps?
Peace, guys. Peace.
Peace.
Catch you guys on the flip side.
Yeah, man. Peace out.